The Saints are off to an 0-2 start this season, and only 3 teams have a worse point differential than New Orleans. It's so bad in the Big Easy that they've fallen to number 30 in the latest ESPN Power Rankings. Making matters worse, Drew Brees has a bruised rotator cuff in his throwing shoulder. The Saints play division rival Carolina on Sunday. Skip, do you expect a turnaround from this team?
Stephen A., not enough to make the playoffs. I expect with Jarris Byrd coming back at safety this week and Keenan Lewis at cornerback, that'll help revitalize Rob Ryan's defense, which has been pretty awful so far. I thought Brandon Cooks was going to be breakout this year. I thought he was about to go Odell Beckham Jr. on the NFL. So far, not so good. He's just been pretty quiet. He's caught 4 for 49 in the first game, 5 for 62 in the second game after he terrorized the Patriots. Remember when they had the scrimmages back in the summer? And Belichick was just raving about we just couldn't deal with them. The Saints have lost their home dome magic, and I'm not sure why. Maybe they're just not good enough, but they lost their last 5 home games last year. Now they've lost a 6th straight this year to Jameis Winston, Tampa Bay division rival. And now they got to go to Carolina. I don't think they're going to win that game. Just me, I'm not objective. I don't think they're going to win the Dallas game. Then they go to Philly, and then they host the Falcons. I just don't know if you're going to get it all back, even though Drew Brees is as tough a customer as they come. Hasn't missed a game ever, and I don't doubt he'll tough it out and tough through this one. But maybe he won't have quite the velocity and distance on his throws that he has before, as he didn't against Tampa, obviously, after he got hurt in the second quarter. He played through it. God bless him. But I don't think they're the Saints anymore.
They're not the Saints because if you remember a couple of years ago, they finished 4th in the league in defense. Last year, they were like, 31st? They gave up about 384 yards per game.
Yeah.
That's just awful. Rob Ryan, there was a time we were talking about his coaching acumen.
I agree.
The only thing he needed to change was his wardrobe, his hairdo.
Yep.
You know, because, I mean, who wants a head coach that looks like he just came from a rock concert? You know, but we're not saying that about Rob Ryan any longer. He certainly has not been that impressive over the last couple of years. We've seen him looking like he's gotten into a few things with Sean Payton. You got to remember that Sean Payton brought in Dennis Allen as an assistant.
He did.
So you know that he's raring to put somebody else up in there because there were people who thought that Rob Ryan would lose his job last year. And so I definitely think that's going to probably be the case after this year. They're not impressive, defensively. They're not that impressive at all. Against the pass, they're ranking about 18th. Against the rush, they're about 24th. They're not impressive at all. Offensively, however, that was their signature. That was their bread and butter. To lose Darren Sproles, to lose Jimmy Graham. They don't seem like the same team. Skip, I'm looking at some of these numbers. Marquise Colston got 7 receptions in 2 games.
Yep.
Coleman, you got 7 receptions in 2 games. Neither of them for 100 yards in 2 games combined. Your leading receiver is Mark Ingram, coming out of the backfield, 11 receptions. That's not the Saints squad that I am accustomed to seeing. You scored 19 points in both games.
Yep.
You seem to struggle to do that. I'm just looking at a New Orleans Saints squad that appears to have lost it. I see this team going nowhere fast, Skip Bayless, and then I look at the schedule. Carolina is not a team to sneeze at. You got them on the road. After that, you got Dallas, okay? And then I'm looking at Philadelphia, Atlanta, Indy. You know, you got Washington down the line. You got Houston down the line in that defense. You got Carolina again. You got Detroit. The schedule didn't look hard, but it's going to look hard for the Saints.
Yeah.
I just don't see this team going anywhere. It looks like Drew Brees has dissipated to some degree, but I don't think it's because of him. I think it's because of the weapons that have been taken away from him, and the luster has definitely been lost in the case of Sean Payton and that staff and the personnel they have around Drew Brees, just as much as anything else.
Well, Jimmy Graham has not made his presence felt in Seattle yet, but his presence is missed in New Orleans.
There is no question.
No question. The NFC South always up for grabs. Carolina and Atlanta both 2-0, and the Bucs are 1-1 at this point. And of course, the Saints are winless, as we just told you. Moving on to the association, the NBA has changed the finals format, but are we liking it? We'll react to that and tell you what it is in just a bit. Texas high school football players who hit a referee in a September 4th game at the direction of the team's assistant coach will be eligible to return to the school for the spring semester. The player's lawyer told ESPN's John Barr on Wednesday. The two John Jay high school players, 15-year-old Victor Rojas and 17-year-old Michael Moreno, have been assigned to an alternative school as punishment and have been prohibited from even watching John Jay games as spectators. With credit for the time they've already spent at the alternative school, the boys will be eligible to return to John Jay when the semester starts on January 15th. And this just in. Mac Breed, the assistant coach from John Jay High School in San Antonio, who was accused of directing the two players to blindside an official during a game, has resigned, according to his attorney. Stephen A., from what you know now, are you okay with those two kids returning to school?
I'm okay with them returning to school as long as they were not allowed to play football for the rest of the year, which appears obviously to be the case. They're not going to be allowed to play football for the rest of the year. For this year, obviously, they can return. They're 15 and 17 years of age. They did not kill someone, thank the good Lord. And so as a result of that, you think about America being a land of second chances, understanding that these are kids. You certainly want to punish them because you want to send the message to teenagers that this is not something that is allowed. There will be consequences from your actions, and the earlier you teach children that, the better. In this day and age, you shouldn't only be teaching that to children, you should also be reminding parents of that as well, because you don't want parents walking around acting like their children are victims when you just finished victimizing somebody else, because that makes you know better. In fact, it makes you worse because you're the adult, which means you're supposed to know better, which means that if you're giving that kind of impression, you know you're even more reprehensible than the kids. But under no circumstances do I believe that the punishment on the part of the kids should exceed that of Mac Breed, the assistant coach, who ultimately told the kids to go after the official. I not only believe he should have resigned, I think he should have been arrested on the spot. You told the kids to go out there and assault an official. That's what you did. They had on helmets, they had on pads, they were behind the official's back, went up to him, one blindsided him, and the other tried to spear him. That is assault. There is no way around it. And the fact that an adult who happens to be a coach literally instructed the kids to do this, I believe he should be held even more accountable than the kids. I will give him credit for this. According to the reports, whether it was the head coach or the principal, I don't recall, he asked what was going to happen to these kids. When he was told that they were going to be expelled, he immediately came forward and said, I put them up to it. So in that regard, I applaud him from the perspective of he was willing to own up to it rather than throw them to the wolves. I do applaud him for that. The second he realized they were going to get punished for it, he stepped up and said it was me. But that doesn't negate the fact that he basically had these kids assault these officials. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm not saying he should spend 10 years in jail or something like that, but there should be an arrest on his record. He should be arrested for assault immediately. They should be knocking on his door today to arrest that man for having that official assaulted, regardless of whether he used the N-word and other racial epithets. I'm not excusing that official. That is inexcusable, and that official should be dealt with if indeed it was true, even though that official is categorically denying it. But we live in a civilized society, and we have to send the message that just because somebody says something to you that you don't like does not give you the license to physically assault them, particularly when you're doing so behind their back instead of standing up in front of their face. I would have respected the official more had he went on the field and confronted the official himself rather than trying to get the kids to do it.
Okay, so I have absolutely no problem with these two kids being allowed to return next semester to school.
That's right. Neither.
And I told you from the start, in no way can you justify those two kids trying to running into that official. But if you'll remember, from the start, I told you when you dug in and said those 2 kids should be arrested should have been arrested on the spot. There could be extenuating circumstances. Let's see what happened. Let's let it play out a little bit. And now, as you know, and you've turned your focus more to the assistant coach.
Okay, but still be clear. I still believe those kids should have been arrested.
You do?
On the spot.
Wow.
On the spot.
I do
I don't
not.
care. Listen, I think it's important. I think imagery is important. I think it's important for other kids.
So you should arrest a 15 and a 17-year-old for following orders from their coach.
I believe the kids, the other kids there, should have seen those 2 kids being taken away in handcuffs. I don't care if you let the kids out of jail in 2 hours. I think it's important for that imagery to allow kids to see what would have happened, what could happen to you if you engage in violence.
Okay.
That's what I still stand by that.
I think you need to investigate first, find out exactly what just transpired. And again, to your point, big picture now, a number of the players on this team have accused this referee, he's denying all the above, of not only making outrageously bad calls against the visiting team for the home team, but as you say, of using the N-word against some of these players and some terms that are offensive to Hispanics against some of these players. So we have all kinds of things going on that led or prompted the young assistant coach to order them to take it out on that referee by blindsiding him, running into him. Again, cannot justify that. But again, if you're ordered by your coach, man, I don't think that should result in an arrest.
We seem to have a full story here.
Yeah.
Here's the difference between you and I. I am telling you right now, particularly because of the generation that we're living in, kids are not respecting their elders. They're not respecting authority. Don't even get me started with community and next door neighbors and how you don't have respect for those folks. I think imagery is essential to the upbringing of kids.
Okay.
You cannot assault a referee, even on a coach's orders, and then walk off the field like nothing happened and get to show up on Good Morning America with George Stephanopoulos talking about we were ordered to do it, and that's the repercussion. I am not in any way advocating that those kids should have been thrown behind bars. What I'm saying is it's incredibly important that they should have been arrested on the spot, even if it's something that's going to be expunged in a week. They should have been arrested on the spot, taken away by the cops for assaulting the police officer. The difference between my feeling about the kids and the coach is that I think after that you let them go, you keep them off the football team, but you allow them to return to school. Whereas with the coach,
if you arrest them, they're going to spend at least one night in jail.
All right, that's fine.
You can't get to the bottom of it.
You know what? You know, ain't nothing wrong with one night. But the other part about it is this: that coach, I think that coach should be arrested.
Okay,
and treated like an adult who assaulted somebody.
But remember,
that is the difference.
Kids are obeying and following the orders of a coach.
One kid didn't, Skip. There were 3 of them that was told. One kid was wise enough.
We're only talking about the 2.
Well, what I'm saying is one kid was wise enough to know better because of how, I don't know if how he was raised or just his natural intelligence. He was smart enough to know, look, I can't do that. I could get in trouble for that. The other 2 should have been. You're 15 and 17. You're not an adult, but you ain't some toddler. You knew better. You did it anyway. No, you're going to pay a price for that. You're going to pay a price for that. If I had a son and that been my son, I'd have whipped him. I'd have whipped him like he stole something.
Okay, well, that's...
And I don't even want to tell you what I would have done to the coach for giving him that order. Please.
All right, let's leave it there. Drew Brees is banged up and the Saints are off to an 0-2 start, but will they turn it around? That's the discussion coming up.